Okay, thank you very much, Stefan. Yeah, nice to see you all and that you made it through this weather. And well, maybe for some it was easy, for others it was more difficult. Yeah, so I would like to give an introduction lecture to the seminar of today. And today we have a nice lineup of speakers, which I will introduce at the end of my presentation. But Mimo Aiksinen from Helsinki in Finland, and Professor Greg Keefe from King's University, Queen's University. Sorry, that's related. Queen's University in Belfast, also Cornell University in New York, and Matthijs Hollanders from the Urbanisten. Um, yeah, so yeah, the urban, so ecological urbanism. So we have here the urban ecosystem design we, as a group at Delft University, and some of you have seen these slides, and maybe for some of them they get boring, but it's good to repeat them, because yeah, most of you are in this field, but maybe some people who see this lecture again are not. But it's good to have that ecology, all organisms are interdependent, interact with the non-living and the living environment. And biodiversity is not just species, but also habitats and genetic diversity. And well, then we think, okay, what does it's very painful if the panda bear or the polar bear gets extinct, but some worms in the grass field, who cares? That's basically the notion. But it is, of course, very important that, well, if we take more blocks out of this tower, then suddenly this local ecosystem collapses, and then the soils will not take up water easily, the trees will not root easily in it, etc., etc. So, and all the linked ecosystem services, the benefits we have from that, will also go away. So basically, biodiversity is a huge topic. Then, yeah, urban ecology. Yeah, why urban ecology? Yeah, we are here at BK, Bouwkunde, so the Faculty of Architecture. Yeah, and it's linked to that whole of interactions of organisms with the built structures, but also where people are concentrated. Um, and if we have, this is now the PDF, I guess. Okay, anyway. So what we see here is, for instance, we have a solar flower, a zonnebloem, and then an insect feeds on it, and this insect gets actually um, eaten by a bird, but this bird gets eaten by a peregrine falcon. And that's basically how urban ecology is explained by a biologist. It's a food web. How do things relate to each other? But from an architect or landscape architect perspective, we had never built this wall, or the architect at that time, for plants to grow on, or for bees to go in, or for birds to nest in. So let's say the bioreceptiveness of this wall has never been designed. So now we can think of that. And the same with all these buildings, which yeah, are put in line in a certain sequence, but never with the idea of being an urban valley. So that nature can also thrive in an environment where people live. This is Flores at the bottom right, and he actually, well, actually showed the campus. He drew the campus in, let's say, different habitats. So he said, oh, this is campus, and that's our building here. That's a little tower across the street. And he said, well, actually, the buildings, they're, yeah, rocky areas. And then we have grasslands, wetlands, and shrubs and woodlands. And that's basically also what we learned from BirdLife Netherlands. These are basically, yeah, the four main typologies, or five actually with the buildings, in which, yeah, they categorized the different bird life. So water birds, or woodland birds, or birds for buildings. And so this is another way of looking to our built environment. And with students, we also work on the eco-campus with that. So we make cuttings with the students, we do projects, we do historic studies. We look at this from a perspective, how the vegetation in the city emerged, etc. But I will come back to the campus in a moment. Just a bit to, yeah, how to place urban ecology design at TU Delft. So as I said, and so predominantly this topic has been approached by biologists only, so not by architects or designers. And that's something which now currently we are picking up. There's many offices who deal with this. And it's very important because we think that, let's say, architectural design and engineering solutions and urban planning explorations can help to see the city as an urban ecosystem, or as an ecosystem in itself, which it is. And then we look at from brownfield to redevelopments, to green roofs and green walls, to park systems, and how to study that. So how can we translate this notion into specific spatial design and experience? And what are new design principles for that? What are new, maybe typologies, green typologies we have never seen before? And that's a quite interesting field. So of course, when we analyze a city, in this case, the city of Rotterdam, we first start with the natural, or in this case, also the agricultural layer. So we look at water, soil, elevations in the landscape vegetation, which this has this own dynamic and its own character. Which is basically this link to the abiotic environment, which nature thrives on. But then there's also this urban layer, where each neighborhood has its own different typology. A young neighborhood, like the Schoenmakerplantage here next to our campus, doesn't have full-grown trees. It has nice buildings with solar panels on top of it, but the trees are very young, while in Wippol or next to it, the trees are fully grown, etc. So there's a different value there. And you also see that in the species, but also the urban layout, and there's the size and the patches of the green in those neighborhoods, make that these neighborhoods are different. So we see the same in the Netherlands. That, for instance, neighborhoods from the 80s have similar species all over, or pre-war neighborhoods have similar species, etc. And there's also these ambassador species for this. So every city is growing into this and starting to have this. And so, but be aware. Greening the city is not only for the birds and the bees. It's more than that, and several scientific papers, more and more, are named here too, actually come also with that conclusion. Because as I started my presentation with biodiversity, it links well to aesthetics, it's beautiful, but also to the urban heat island effect, to well-being, biodiversity, water harvesting, air filtering, recreation. Well, there's 24 of those ecosystem services, which can also be linked directly to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And so there, in greening the city, there's much more value than only the intrinsic value of nature, which is very important, or the biodiversity itself. So distribution of green and well-being is also very important. Here you see, for instance, the city of Rotterdam, where there is a lack of green in some areas. This is work by one of our graduate students a few years ago. So it's also about distribution of green over the city and how to deal with that and what type of green we put where. And so Manu de Rode, one of our graduate students, he made this green typology atlas and said, okay, what types of green do we have? Of course, we have a park and a laan, so tree-lined streets and all that kind of things. But there's more than that. These days there's vertical green, different typologies of vertical green. There's different roof habitats, and he did also some tests with that. In this case, in Kuik by Eben Tree Nurseries, he kind of said, okay, let's see if we have this soil where we can take some grass from below at the ground level, so that all the worms and all the soil life is also kind of inoculated on this roof. And then he compared kind of which roof where it was growing better. And it turned out that when you inoculate this roof with existing life, that growth would be much better. The downside was is that you had a lot of weeds on the roof. And so the so the question is, do you want the weeds on the roof or not? So maybe we could have prevented that. But it's also about accessible rooftops. Of course, we have the library here at TU Delft, which is now 25 years old, I think. But it's strange that we never see more of these buildings, which actually make you go to +1, +2 in Rotterdam or Amsterdam or other big cities, and that you have this accessibility of this next level landscape, that you kind of have this green structure interweave with the built environment, so that we go towards a compact eco-city, which also links to the different landscapes outside. So, for instance, to the peat landscape in the north of Rotterdam, or to the other landscapes surrounding the city. Other work from students is, for instance, this one from Pu Jiang in 2021. and she looked at the Dordtselaan in Rotterdam, which is a street. I don't pin me down on it, but I think it's 1 or 2 kilometers long. But the thing is that this street goes through peat, through sand and clay. It's narrow, it's wide, it goes a bit up and down, it hits different kind of neighborhoods, and everywhere you see in the street is London Plain, platanus, which is great for some bats and some type of birds who breed in it, but for the rest, the ecological value of platanus is not that big. So she kind of look, how can we change this street? So if there is an opportunity to get rid of the platanus, or if some get knocked down, or the castanje in one of these streets nearby, what to do? So she kind of linked this ecosystem services, so water storage, heat stress, etc., to planting new trees. So to go basically from one species to a linear forest. So here she did that, for instance, by linking to so meadow species. So she looked at a bat, a bird, a bee, a butterfly, and a hedgehog, and each of them had their own requirements, basically. Yeah? So what actually happened is that there were now many, instead of one species, which is quite vulnerable, we had many species, say 10 species, young trees, old trees, mixed through each other, shrubs, etc. And that linked to basically all these different species. For instance, here the bats, they need a continuous canopy layer, but also the hedgehog wants to have some bushes to run around. So for each species, this was kind of designed for. And here you can see it again in a row with that. Can this move? Because we don't see. We miss some. Thanks. See, so target species, moving behavior of this species, nesting place, shelter, etc. And that then designed in that new type of street. So from a simple street, lane and laan, as we call it in Dutch, to a linear forest with this biodiversity, but also with the ecosystem services attached to it. Oh no, this is not now stuck. Okay, so the question is, can we test the stuff we learn from students, the stuff we find out ourselves? Can we test that on campus? Yeah, you can do that one. Yeah. So yeah, okay, great. So we a few years ago, and I'm not sure if this is a short film or the long one, but it's not that long. Don't worry. We made a film with some students on the campus.
Imagine being part of a university campus that is thriving with people and biodiversity. This eco-campus is an essential part of your highest academic and philosophical aspirations. The eco-campus sustains students, faculty, plants and animals living together in an exquisite co-creation of balanced living systems. When you walk through the many biozones of the campus, the flow state and circularity reveals reassuring confidence that comes from being part of natural systems in balance. Polarizing forces of the past meticulous, manicured landscapes and human-centered architecture is transformed into this jaw-dropping campus. This EcoVision campus you're experiencing is what we are planning within the 2020 class of Landscape Architecture, Urban Design and Architecture at Delft University. We're not there yet, so let us show you how we intend to make this transformation. Delft University started in 1842 as a Royal Academy of Education for Civil Engineers. 22 years later, the academy became the Polytechnic School of Delft. Today, the Delft University of Technology, also known as TU Delft, is a prestigious international polytechnic university with 8 faculties offering 16 bachelor's and more than 30 master's programs. More than 25,000 students and 6,000 employees share a fascination for science, design and technology, focusing on a joint mission: impact for a better society. Our approach for this EcoVision campus project borrows from the Dutch tradition of working in a multidisciplinary way. Together, our class is an international mix of students working in groups to create integrated solutions for the built environment. Our class formed new groups for this final planning. Each group focused on a different element of the eco-campus design. The art of letting grow is not a fixed result. It is a dynamic process. It is about living and growing with nature, so it's not only human-oriented design. The concept is to work with the living systems and go with the flow. We propose working in a bottom-up way, where we design with time and develop a campus with what is already there, what already exists. We're working on reducing pavement, adding compost layers, and enabling vegetation to go through different phases of succession over time. Letting these elements go will reduce the costs of campus maintenance and improve the overall health of our community. In combination, our ideas communicate a new campus vision that makes room for diversity and growth within the human and biological communities interacting and evolving. We hope to see you soon at our Eco Campus.
Escape? Oh. Okay, yeah, so this was a short version, which is good. Basically, this is outcome of the Eco Campus project. It's an elective course we do every year with students on campus, where they really also can build stuff. So planting schemes, type of gardens, green walls, green roofs, etc. And the nice thing is that from this vision, the students, or we made with the students, looking at, for instance, here, the water system, the higher grounds in Delft, and this is our campus, which waters basically to this side. We said, okay, let's make a vision which actually reflects this. So that's why this was kind of forestry, meadow, and this swamp area. Of course, there can be trees in a swamp area as well, but this was the choice we made. And this also led to a kind of a vision which campus and real estate, but also the board of the university kind of acknowledges, okay, this is a kind of ecological mapping we like to use and to decide upon when we have new projects on campus. So that's this one. So this is the official ecological campus layout for decision making, and it's also linked to target species here, which we really can now focus on. So every time we have a project, we can relate to that, or basically they have to relate to this. So that's a very interesting, nice step. You saw already in the film, of course, we try to do soft edges, but also urban bocage, but I will come to that in a minute. So soft edges of waterways, but also certain habitats where there's sandy soils. For instance, all the soils here, it's sand which has been brought up the peat. So we try to mimic natural paths actually. So here we use dune plantation, so duindorens, rhamnus, and some rosa from the dunes as well, and other perennial plants which actually grow in the dunes. So this is what we try to do, and this is the way how we try to green campus. So bit by bit, this is growing. Another interesting project is the urban bocage that actually was a kind of follow-up of these linear forests. And a bocage is a hedge landscape in Bretagne or Normandy, where we said, okay, a lot of biodiversity is disappearing because we have a lack of hedges in cities. Well, also outside the cities, but in cities as well. So this is what we do with Silver Landschapsarchitecten. This is een stimuleringsfonds voor de architectuur project. And a few other, Naturalis and Terra Nostra. And what we actually did, and Rosa is one of the planting people here, we turned this bare strip of, which was full with, what was it, weeds or grass, I can't remember, into this, which is basically, should be a kind of hedgerow full with native plants. So let's say native plants from the environment, but also native plants from France, so from Bordeaux. And then you think, why Bordeaux? Well, so we have one edge, one side, which is full with plants from the Netherlands, and the other is from Bordeaux, because we expect the Bordeaux climate in the coming decades to be here. So we would like already to test with these type of plants. So this is a punica, a granaatappel, and this is not pistache, I think it's, yeah, pistachio. And we also do soil measurements. So how does the soil increase over time? What is happening over there? other interventions, so basically talking about new typologies, is that we also did a project for bees, so a bee landscape. And in the beginning, we said, yeah, bee landscape, bee hotels, bee burrows, that's die bijenheuvels. And we thought, well, is that really landscape architecture or design or landscape architectural typology? No, not yet. But we said, what if we turn these little hills, not in Little Hill, but we turn them into a ridge, so that we have ongoing ridges where we can have bees inside, where we take out the soil for a wadi to construct a bee ridge. And if it's above water, maybe we can use it also for kingfishers or oeverzwaluwen. Forgot the English name for that, swallow, I think. Yeah. So basically, to become more creative with the edges in our public space, and to come up with new design typologies. There's a project from René, so probably he will show that next week as well, René van der Velde. So this is the climate arboretum, which will be these trees, they should go somewhere. So with a small group, so René, Rosa, and René Hoonhout, we came up with this plan of making a climate grove. So basically, instead of only using it for heat stress, also have the water from the roofs concentrated here so that it can actually infiltrate. So it's a urban climate grove, or treewadi in the volksmond, so to say, where basically based on research from René van der Velde and others, and Saskia de Wit, is looking to the cooling capacity. So that's linked to heat stress. But also, if we want to have this water in this area, well, we should be able to plant trees which can resist water clogging. If the water stays for a long time there, we have deeper areas or higher areas. So we designed it in such a way that the trees can actually, on a dry part or in a wet part. So this is also testing. We don't know everything, but if you look outside and you walk along a river, you see that there are certain tree species who can deal with this and others cannot. But there's a lot of more of research to be backed with this. For instance, also different vegetation, different soils, also where we do not plant plants. So basically, to follow succession from a bare piece of land and what happens with natural succession, and more research on that topic. So just some extra notions, because this is supposed to be an introductory speech and not a half an hour lecture. But anyway, but some extra notions on this. So because when we look at cities and greening cities, I like this example, the Daphne Schippersbrug in Utrecht. Here we see that basically the civil engineer, let's say the building, the bridge builder in this case, uses the school as a landing post. Well, also this one, but also this construction. Then this is too steep to make this cycling path go down, so they did this. But at the same time, by doing that, they kind of constructed a courtyard for the school. So landscape architect, civil engineer, ecologist, I don't know, everyone works together to make this a better piece of city. What if they would have done even green roofs and green walls and more parks, etc.? Well, you can see where this is going. But this thinking in synergies, it seems logical and we say we do it, but every time we build a building or build a park, we never link these things. And well, we do have these Roman villas for a long time. We have suburbia, high rise, and but the question is this the answer to the challenges we are facing? And to some, yes, but you introduce new problems, social problems or mobility problems, etc. So there's definitely some good in this, but the question is, are these the answers? Well, no, but then also the question is, are these fairy tales? And it's sprookjes. This is what Hundertwasser did 100 years ago. This might be a joke, but still, you can see where this is going. And if you look at this school in Paris, actually, in Boulogne-Billancourt, well, they have these wadis with trees in it, and they have this bioreceptive concrete where the plants grow in, where the bees can go in, where the birds can go in. They have green roofs. So this is the local gymnasium over there. So it is possible to build like this and yeah, to take this a step further. Um, what is interesting as well to how can we design cities based on ecosystems and to improve the total urban system so synergies throughout society, throughout all scales. And one of the things is, for instance, that yeah, it should be nature positive, zero carbon, and or even carbon negative, and climate adaptive. And well, with this in mind, we also selected the speakers of today, where Mimu will talk about the building industry and the buildings from Helsinki and Finland. And Greg will do rewilding Manhattan, so more that perspective. And Matthijs Hollanders will kind of talk about, well, what do we design and build already outside from the perspective of the urbanist. So with that, yeah, I want to thank you for attention. And well, if there are some questions, let's do that, but then also move on to the next speaker. So thank you very much.